students. But today we only have 19 programs with 122 students. And so that's a decrease of 81 programs and 587 students. And this is just showing how many active programs we had, which I mentioned. We have 19 active programs in the United States and Puerto Rico. We currently have 0 inactive programs, but we also have no new developing programs. And the CPRC had asked me to address satellite sites as a way to maybe grow some existing programs from the programs that we currently have. So I'm going to talk a little bit about UNMC's satellites, just to kind of give you an overview of what we are doing. So the University of Nebraska has currently 9, actually we have 11 approved, but we have 9 that are participating this year. You'll see them listed here. We have 2 that have been approved, but will not start until this upcoming August. And then we have 1 that we haven't actually signed our contract yet, so I'm not going to announce where they are yet. You know, each site may only have 1 to 2 students, but we found that it's a great way to increase our student capacity and to also recruit students who aren't able to relocate to the Omaha area. This is just a visual to show you, you know, all the different programs and satellite sites in the United States and Puerto Rico. So the blue stars are the active, the 19 active programs, and the little black satellites are UNMC satellite sites. I only have 10 black satellite sites listed here because the one hasn't been officially approved yet. And the other one is our Anytime, Anywhere site, which can fluctuate locations each year. And so for instance, this year we have an Anytime, Anywhere site in Findlay, Ohio. And last year we had one in Falls Church, Virginia. So I just want to say that it's been a long journey for us to get to this point, and we've had many challenges along the way. And we're confronting even more challenges as we change to the master's degree. But we feel that it's really worth it in the end. We're not only contributing to the amount of graduates out in the workforce, but our program allows students to go to cytology school that wouldn't otherwise get to do that. And we've been able to expand the number of students in our program, which we wouldn't be able to do if we were limited to just our classroom space. And so with the number of programs who had to go virtual for the pandemic, I would think that that might be a good first step in considering online or distant learning options for your program. These are the types of programs that currently exist. So we have 8 that are certificate only. We have 8 that are degree only. We have 4 that have a combination of certificate and degree. And we have 5 that are master's level. So here is just showing the student capacity. So how many seats do we have to fill in our programs? So in 2018, so that is not what this graph is showing, but we had a total of 177 seats available with 116 filled for a 34.5% open vacancy rate. So this last year, this is what we're showing here, we had 156 seats and 108 seats were filled with 48 left open. And so even with the decrease in programs and seats available, we still have about the same vacancy rate. And it's a little, you know, slightly less, from 34 to 30%. But why is it that we're unable to fill our seats? I think that's something that programs have struggled with for a long time. One would think with so few spots available that we would have more than enough applicants to fill our seats, but that doesn't necessarily seem so. Here are some of our outcomes data. You can see that our attrition is low and our retention is high. We have a good positive placement and first-time pass rate. The survey rates are a bit lower, but they still meet the thresholds given. And you know, it's typical to have lower survey return rates, not just in cytology, but in other CAHEP programs as well. So it's something that's always discussed as how could we improve upon that. We had a nice positive placement. So we had 95 graduates in our programs last year. And this is showing that 80 of those 95 were actually employed in cytology. 8 were employed in ancillary professions. 2 went on to either graduate school or medical school. And 5 were either unemployed or unknown where they were working. So something a little different here is that the CPRC has been thinking about conducting virtual site visits. We started the conversation long before the pandemic, but now more than ever, we need to get the ball rolling. And so we formed a task force made up of the people listed here. And there were 2 site visits that were put on hold because of the pandemic. So we're hoping that maybe we can get those going with some virtual site visits this year. And those were Memorial Sloan Kettering and the University of Puerto Rico. We also have 2 upcoming site visits, and that's UCLA and Damon College. And, in CAHEP, other programs, other professions, I should say, in COAs, they have been using virtual site visits for a while, so they do have some experience. And so we're going to be referring to CAHEP for some resources during the trial period of time to do our site visits. So that is all for the update on our programs at this point. And now I want to turn it over to Karen to talk about the new standards and guidelines and entry-level competencies for this master's level program. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and Karen can now share hers.
Did we successfully transition? Hopefully.
It looks like it, Karen.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for participating today. We are in part 2, and as Amber said, we're talking about our standards, guidelines, and entry-level competencies. I am the immediate past chair of the CPRC, and they've apparently bestowed upon you the privilege of staying another year or 2 to keep wrapping things up. So I'll be around for a couple more years, and I am on the committee that is again, a lot of, as Amber said, a lot of work is done behind the scenes to get this to happen, and this committee is pretty active. We have the distinct advantage of having Kalyani also serve as a member of the standards committee for CAHEP, so she's able to bring us some very good information that helps us stay in the right direction. So theoretically, we have 3 people speaking. Well, realistically, we have 3 people speaking today, and we've been each assigned 15 minutes to allow for some questions at the end. And speaking of I'm going to cover these 3 topics. I'll do a quick progress report on where the standards are. We'll highlight what I call our home stretch highlights. These are the most recent changes and most critical changes that we think you should be probably mostly familiar with now, but certainly if not, you are now. And the WIFM, what's in it for you? We're going to touch upon all of these topics, not necessarily in that order, but hopefully we'll cover all 3 of these items in the next 15 minutes. This is a pretty high level include my presentation. The last time the standards were changed was in 2013. And it wasn't until March of 2019 that the CPRC met for about 2.5, 3 days to literally dissect the standards and take all of the information that we had been gathering for the prior 2 years through surveys and articles and feedback from our communities of interest and incorporate that into, where is the scope of practice today? So from that point, we have continued to reach out, and you see we've had feedback from our sponsors. We've done several different sessions with our communities of interest, a lot at our strategy sessions at ASC meetings. We've done webinars. So we are right here where you see the arrow right here today. We've got a final draft ready to go into CAHEP. So that's where we are right this minute. And I am going to share with you some of the highlights of the changes. So all of these revisions really reflect our professional identity. And in that identity, really our name of our profession is critical to helping describe who we are and what we do. The actual description of our profession hasn't changed. And things that we actually did address this year is to describe our profession based on where the scope is much the school curriculum that continues to define our identity as to who we are and what we're going to be skilled and capable to do upon graduation. So that is pretty much what we've spent the last few years focusing on, is our professional identity. Those of you who are, managing programs currently are very familiar with the standards. And they are broken out into 3 basic sections. You have your standards, your Appendix A, and your Appendix B. The standard section and the Appendix A section quality standards that are required by the programs to receive accreditation. But we do have some input in some of these sections. So our most recent revisions address some of the issues in both the standards and Appendix B. And some of you have seen this slide before, but I think it's a good review of where we've made our biggest changes. The name of our profession, we have been toying with this for many years. We've actually landed upon a name, and I'll go over it with you. We have updated our professional description to better practice of our program directors, education coordinators, and medical directors. So we did address some issues there. Appendix B is the entry-level competencies, and we've made several changes or revisions here. We've added some new ELCs, entry-level competencies. We've upgraded ones that existed in the 2013 document, and we'll go over some of that. And we also reorganized the entire format. We have eliminated most of the italicized guideline section, and we'll talk more about what we're going to do with name, and this has gone after much volleying back and forth between communities of interest and sponsors. Our profession name has changed from Cytotechnology, and we're going to propose the term cytology. So you'll be working in the profession of cytology. It's not an unfamiliar term. Our professional name has gone from cytotechnologist to cytologist. I'm sorry, I just have a distraction in my background here. Zooming from home does that. Cytotechnologist, we felt the term technologist no longer reflected our scope of practice nor the master's degree. So cytologist was a term that we were most of our sponsors pretty much agreed on. So cytology, cytologist. Our professional description, I think we have presented this to you before in several different sessions, but we'll review it here for comprehensiveness. Our professional description in the standards document reads, as you see here, cytology is a healthcare profession within pathology and laboratory medicine, providing advanced diagnostic services and physician support, integrating morphologic interpretation. The cytologist is a highly trained health professional who uses morphologic skills, understanding of neoplasia, and ability to synthesize clinical and laboratory data to assist pathologists and clinicians in providing high-quality diagnostic services. Please don't. Sorry. Okay. So what you'll see here is this really reflects the expanded scope of practice of the cytologist becoming more of a health partner and synthesizing and integrating a lot more of the laboratory data that is coming our way for each of our patient test samples. The master's degree. This is not new news, but it is actually embedded into the language of the new standards that will be proposed to CAHEP. And basically we say, you can read the underlined section, must either award a minimum of a master's degree. So this sponsoring institution must be one of the following. They have to award a minimum of a master's degree. And this means that MS degree students will not be able to enroll into a program that provides a certificate of completion in cytology or a bachelor's degree. Members data update, we have many programs that offer certificates or baccalaureate degrees, so you can enroll students that currently have baccalaureate degrees and provide them a certificate in cytology. This is, again, is not new news, but this is confirming that this is embedded into our language now, and it will be going forward, that we're going to have to eliminate this option and move towards offering a master's degree. And before, I will say that we've been in conversation with others, and I think there are lots of alternative and ways to manage through this. So I highly recommend, if you have any concerns or questions, that you reach out, Amber, Debbie, and they'll help walk through some of the challenges as you move forward to make those changes. Given this new requirement, one of the prominent questions that we frequently get is what's going to happen to the current program directors that do not have a master's degree, and how many program directors may be eliminated from this new change. Well, actually, I think this is the newest language. We just updated this as recently as a month ago. This reads, and this is only part of it, but the program director must possess at a minimum a certification as a cytologist, the master's degree, health sciences, allied health sciences, educational methodology. But the final decision is left to the discretion of the sponsoring institution to determine that individual's qualifications for that position. But this is the language that is currently in, that we have not changed. Persons approved as program director under previous standards will continue to be approved in that position at that institution, provided ongoing competence is demonstrated. So I guess you can say this is a safety net or a and correct those of us or you in the industry right now that might be impacted by that. So quickly, I'm going to go through some high-level highlights. The biggest change, I think, that will be most apparent when you pull up the new 2020 revised document is the format. In the first section of the entry-level competencies, we have evaluation and interpretation. We used to have 3 sections. We had GYN, non-GYN, and fine needle aspiration. We now have screening tests. Because there's some, the second takes all diagnostic tests that are non-GYN to include the fine needle. So that's a little different, but there was a lot of duplication, particularly when it came to morphologic entities to identify, and different items are required in each section. So gross examination, this is a brand new entry-level competency. And this implies that the student will demonstrate, which means they have to do it, the ability to perform gross examination of small biopsies. A lot of rationale behind this. Due to the field, they're managing more of the small biopsies and frozen sections. So in this ties nicely into our ability to integrate some of that testing with our companion technologies. Digital pathology. This is an upgrade from what we had in 2013. Before, the student was able to understand and talk about and be able to pretty much move around the digital pathology, but now they actually have to use it, do it, and demonstrate that they know how to use it as part of the diagnostic team to include second would be to, of course, transmit from remote sites, to develop, organize, and present images at consultations, tumor boards. But here are 2 items, the last 2 items here I think are critical. They have to, understand how to manage files to include organization, annotation, and image archiving. This is a big part of digital pathology. And then, of course, a whole different approach is to be able to do image analysis with immunos and molecular procedures. So it's really expanding the just knowing about it to the doing of it in the 20. This is a brand new slides, tissue blocks, cell blocks, and select samples that will have actual adequate morphologic material for the companion technology test that has been ordered. Many times, if you pick the wrong slide or the wrong slide is sent out for diagnostic testing, it'll come back insufficient because nobody's taken the time to go through and identify whether or not there's adequate material for testing. Our primary skills still remain as morphologists, and this is a great application of that basic fundamental skill that we are still purporting to be done in the new. Will we teach this? Hope may be quite helpful in expanding some of these tutorials for you. Companion technologies like digital pathology got an upgrade this year. So the student will not just know about it, be able to talk about it and describe it. They actually have to evaluate and analyze findings and clinical significance of results. So they need to do it, not just talk about it. So they're going to have to demonstrate that in the programs. A lot of text here. I'm not going to read through them all, but suffice it to say, we have a segment in the competencies, and these are just a few. I think they're really well received. But what you're seeing is that we're really recognizing the impact that the student is going to have on the total patient care and the consequence of their interpretations. They're being recognized more as part of the diagnostic team and having to integrate a lot more information than they're normally used to, from just, not just screening, diagnosing, and moving on. It's really a integration. I'm pretty sure you'll get a copy of this presentation, and you can read through these. Another work effectively as the healthcare team, how they communicate with others. I know this is still a part of it now, but again, expanding on the scope of practice, bringing in the other components of the healthcare system. So these are some really nice additions. These are brand new. So breaking news, I guess, the word of the day. So we're almost done here. The timeline, remember I showed you where we have come from in the first slide, and this is where we're heading out now. Right now, between December and January, we are getting our community. We've seen this numerous times. We've incorporated their feedback, so we're hoping this will go quickly. And by January, we'll have everything confirmed. This is actually January 2021. We have a justification statement as to why we've changed our name and requested a change to a master's degree. This is already completed and will go along with this proposed document to CAHEP. So this is it. We're really in the final stretch. January, February, we're hoping to submit our standards and guidelines to CAHEP for their review. So that and we've been promising you that in the document, we're developing a best practice guide. We've talked to many of you about what might go in there. I know Michelle Smith was active in reaching out to a lot of you for that. We have a glossary of terms to help understand how to implement some of the changes. And so these are two areas, the best practice guide and the glossary, which will help implement in the implementation phase. We're hoping that by March, we'll get some feedback and consensus. So we're going to hope for that consensus document. In the meantime, we're going to be with the ASCP to understand how to move towards a master's and what all that means. Here it is, April through May of 2021. We're hoping that our discussions with CPRC and CAHEP will be pretty well underway. We'll be able to have our hearings and eventually get board of directors approval. So we're hoping by the spring. Once that gets approved, so we're hoping for the middle of 2021, and maybe we'll throw in a COVID vaccine in the middle of all of that. We expect, and I know this has always been some questions, how long will it take for us to have to implement that? Given the master's degree requirement and some of the other significant changes, we'll probably put a timeline of 3 to 4 years of implementation. I believe we had a 2 to 3 year implementation in the 2013 revisions. So that's probably what you can expect realistically. So I know many of you need timelines to move with your institutions regarding your master's program. So let's try to stick to this one as a guide. So that's it. I hope you've been jotting down your questions as we've gone along. If you leave this seminar and think of something, please send an email to Debbie. I'm sure most of you have her email. She could probably provide it at the end of the session. Next up, the long-awaited and some of the changes. Sean McNair is really progressive, and I think is going to bring home what you all need to move forward. Please stay safe during these challenging times, and I am ready to stop sharing and move this along to Sean.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone hears me okay. I am going to share my screen now and begin my talk on the cell site. All right, does everyone see my presentation? Okay, yes. Wonderful, perfect. I see it sharing. Okay, great. So hi, everyone. I'm Sean McNair. I'm the program director for the Hunter College AC and Cytotechnology program, and I'm also the cytology education coordinator at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. So I am here to give a few updates on the C.E.L.L website, which, you know, the timing has been great that we received approval to go ahead with the site rebuild from our 4 sponsoring societies. This aligns very nicely with our current updates to our standards and guidelines. And I think that it'll give us an opportunity to not only create some best practices or best teaching resources for program directors, but I think that this particular build is really going to demonstrate to the pathology community that we really do have the abilities to, you know, expand on our skill sets. And one of those things can be designing a relatively awesome and cohesive website. So essentially, there will be 3 objectives here. I'll briefly summarize the C.E.L.L journey. I'll communicate the top 5 areas, which really were the top 6 areas, which we will work on initially as we flesh out the site. And then I'll also discuss the process and the vision, and just take it from there. So essentially, as most in the audience know, the Cytology Education Learning Lab basically was born from the need to provide program directors with resources that were helpful to teach the entry-level competencies which came into place in 2014. The program directors were saying, well, we've never taught this before, so can we have some sorts of reference materials, or PDFs, PowerPoints, et cetera, from content experts to provide a template to begin teaching some of these new ELCs. And of course, this idea and the initial creation of the website was an example of innovation. However, when you innovate, there is a challenge to basically continue to light that flame. And there were some I would say that most of the issues with upkeeping the C.E.L.L website were basically issues which arose from the site design. Essentially, it was the site design, and also the idea that we focused on the idea of providing materials. However, we didn't really focus on what a user, when navigating a website, actually does. So what we did with the initial C.E.L.L website was very different than what the normal internet browser does today when they're looking for references. So a lot of the journey to getting to this new build has been really communicating to the 4 co-sponsors that we understand the mistakes. And, you know, I also have had to convey that part of innovating involves making mistakes. And I think that obviously in the medical community, this is very different than what we do on a daily basis. We try our best to avoid mistakes. And, you know, in terms of innovation, I like the idea that we are able to make mistakes, see them, and then evolve from that. And the new build, I will talk about some of the tenets of the new build, but the new build will really focus on the user experience. Essentially, what we're going to evolve, the idea that we're evolving in this new C.E.L.L build, is that we're not only going to build a website with resources, but we are going to make a website that people actually want to use, and they want to go to, and they want to navigate, and it's easy, and it's simple, and it is just a joy to use. So essentially, you'll notice that a lot of my slides will say focus, and essentially the central theme of redesigning C.E.L.L begins with more than just the PDs. It is a centralized experience for anyone who navigates the website. Essentially, I am building a website that I would like to use regularly, and that I think that any other professional who wants to learn pathology or cytology or is interested in what our entry-level competencies are would like to use. Okay, so I just have a little aside here, and basically the journey to integrating a cell website is important. And the reason why this is important is because we're going to be able to uh, communicate clearly the dynamics of our curriculum. It's a great basis to be able to demonstrate what we do. And that's actually why we've decided to build the website. The outline of its website is a direct extension of the standards and guidelines. So, anyone who's looking to see what we actually learn, they won't have to dive through the KHEB document. They'll actually be able to say, well, hey, this website is an extension of the curriculum for a cytologist. And of course, we'll also be able to foster visibility to the rest of the Search Path Laboratory to advertise our skill set as we eventually begin to emerge into roles which are peripheral to the cytology lab. And basically the tenets behind the build of the website are going to be, this is number one for me, simple is best. I know that we've had many conversations about the C.E.L.L website, and there are so many ideas and there are so many desires. And the dangerous thing that you can do is try to do it all on one site. And what happens is that we end up with a cluttered website that basically, when a user is engaging with that site, they won't be able to find the things that they need to find. So we're going to go with the simple is best methodology. We're going to have a consistent website. Every page will look the same. We will focus on typography and readability, mobile compatibility, so you can pull out your cell phone and use these. You do not need to be sitting in front of a website to digest our content. We will have lots of imagery. I'm actually really excited about that, and the committee and I will be focusing on that first. Easy loading, communication with the user, and of course, one of the more important things is easy navigation. For a casual user who only has 3 minutes or is only devoting 3 minutes to the website, they will be able to enjoy and find the resources that they need. And that involved the utilization of a new site template. So we're going to be using the Divi child theme, and also the C.E.L.L website will be built in a learning management system course format, so that the user will be able to navigate to each of our standards and guidelines, entry-level competencies, to basically go within subdivisions to learn, look at our different resources that we provide under each section. So the top 5 areas, according to a program director survey, which was administered in August, is that program directors would like to see the new entry-level competency of small biopsy specimens included, lab operations, test development and validation, companion technologies, flow cytometry, and molecular, which we will most likely combine into one unit, and then digital analysis, digital pathology techniques, and then immunohistochemistry as well. Okay, so we have the initial build will have about 26 course pages per se, because the course pages will correspond to the entry-level competencies and what a cytotechnology student should be able to do. But we're going to start with these 5 to be able to have a template to present to the sponsoring societies, to say that this is the overall backbone of our website. Okay. So back to the focus. So with this, we're fielding lots of ideas, and you field some amazing things. Let's integrate this, let's integrate that. But for me, one of the biggest things that I've tried to tell myself is to focus. I want to think as the user and not as the creator, because as the creator, it's very easy for me to just splatter as many things on a website and just say, add this, add that, add this, add this, add this, and then, hey, I've done it, look. But I want to focus on the user experience. So essentially that means that we want to embed images. We want to keep the users on the website, and we want to make the website very navigable. We'll have an optimized image gallery, which is probably going to be the most fun part for everybody on the committee to participate in. We are going to curate and annotate and archive images and create a gallery, a reference gallery that I think will be very, 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 very formidable. Also, one of the best practices that we've learned from the original C.E.L.L site is that we want to present these ELCs as short digestible content. And this is really just understanding the habits of the casual website user. And I am a casual website user. When I visit a website during the day, I am not there as an art project. I am there to find something, and I want to find it quickly. And I want it to be outlined in a way that I can see it. If I have to click 7 times and I'm not sure where it is, then I'm going to move away from that website and then go and Google another website, which is going to provide me with the information that I need in a more cohesive format. And this is actually why I believe that Pathology Outlines, has always been #1 in the community, or close to #1, because essentially the site is designed in a way that's simple, and that if you go to the site, you know exactly what you need to find and you know where to find it. And it's in short, digestible information. The C.E.L.L website is not meant to replace a course. It's not meant to be a course. It is not meant to be an entire lesson. It is meant to provide a starting point or a reference material for for anyone needing to learn or to digest some of the entry-level competencies. And we also want to build a template for growth, and I'll focus on that in the next slide. So essentially, the initial website launch will be a growth initiative. The idea that we'll be able to create this website which rivals Apple or something that Google will create is not something that is the goal initially. The goal is going to be something that provides a template for the future growth, because there are future ideas and future plans that we would like to incorporate into the website. However, we were limited by the template of the website. When we look at the technology and we look at how do we do that? When we went to visit the WordPress template, we realized that we were just so limited on site functionality that we needed to build out something new to be able to house our current and possibly future goals. And that's why the decision to go with a learning management system was decided, so that we could house possibly a digital pathology teaching page. We can house whole slide imaging. We can house a gallery, and we can use different plugins to boost the gallery that, we can replace the gallery that's already included in the site template. So the idea that the template was penultimate to this goal is something that I've really been focusing on. So the version of C.E.L.L that you see when it comes out of this private editing mode will not be the final version of the C.E.L.L website. There'll be lots of room for growth, and we want to make sure that we appropriately build out those building blocks in this version. And I think we've successfully convinced the 4 societies, but now the hard part is that we've done the convincing and the persuasion, but now we have to keep to those principles. And that is something that I am focusing on as chair. And essentially, a few more points before we take questions. I've also decided that simple is best in this, and I have decided that the whole having so many cooks in the pot of building a website template can be detrimental and slow down the build. When I figured that the chair, myself, can focus on getting the backbone built out. I've had several conference calls with our vendor, Helio, and Helio we have walked through essentially, but this is all pre-content. And essentially our meetings have focused on, as the user, What do you want the user to see? How do you want them to see it? When they click something, where does it go? So these are the types of decisions that I've been making with Helio. And in our next meeting, we're going to build out a wireframe. And I'm very, very excited about it because that wireframe is going to be consistent throughout the entire site. And that wireframe will serve as, basically the point of navigation, with the hopes that anyone who signs up for C.E.L.L understands that they'll get the same visual experience throughout the entire website. So we are focusing on the future, and obviously, as we all know, technology is the answer. But I think that there's been a lot more detail, as I do have friends who are web designers, and the principles of web design have evolved very, very, very fast, as in what makes a website versus what makes a good website. And obviously, I want to learn best practices because we do want to make sure that the C.E.L.L website is something that is not just a, hey, this is nice today and this is great today, but we also want it to be able to be great tomorrow, 5 years from now, in our next iteration. And I would like to be able to leave a template that, the future committee chairs and committee members would be able to say, hey, I think we can work with this and we can evolve this particular site. And that's the key. The end goal here, which, is an end, is I think is very, very achievable if we focus on the process, is to be a cyto path outlines or a power cyto path. Yeah, and when I speak with residents and fellows, their go-to sites are path outlines and power path. Right? This is where they go to. And also numerous individual pathologists have been developing their own learning websites. And I enjoy looking at the creativity. And I think that we as a committee will be able to match that intensity. So once again, we win at what we focus on. We'll support committee members and C.E.L.L users with education on web design principles to be able to carry this on. And also, I've just learned that short digestible task with tight deadlines are very good to complete the deliverables. So I have a 3-week turnaround on my next task for the Helio website, which is just focusing some more on, how the pages will look, what text is included, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what we'll be doing for the committee to advance this initiative. This is a big project, I do agree, but I think if we focus on the smaller task and say that this task is the only focus right now, and then that task will be due, in a few weeks, I think that, committee members will be able to take that in their schedule. And we'll also be working with the executive board to share progress. These are our next steps. We've selected a template. We are going to curate images for the gallery because we're going to build out the frame of the site. We are going to fortify site functionality and then develop a wireframe. So essentially, when the committee members end up filling in the text, which is what everyone's excited to do, they'll actually be able to say, wow, I have a foundation to build my house. And then it's so much easier for them to just add the content, which is available, relatively quickly. Deliverables that we'll be reporting to the board are things, are key performance indicators such as site engagement, traffic sources, audience reach, average session time. We will be studying how long people actually spend on our website, and we'll also hope to administer site surveys to answer questions on functionality. We'll maintain a relationship with our web designers. They are our lifeline. And I think that they're really helping me to understand that user experience is the #1 thing here. And we'll also update this with new trends in cytopathology and add new site functionality. Take-home messages: persistence, perseverance, and passion equals production. And you win at what you focus on. This is going to be a tough project, but I think that with these principles in mind, focusing on the user and focusing on simplicity, we'll be able to advance this initiative. Thank you. All set.
All right. Well, thank you, Sean and Karen. Let's see. We just have a comment here from Barb Frayne. So she says, Sean, I love your vision. Very excited about this. question for Karen or others. A COI asks, so a community of interest asks, what happened to the name cytopathology practitioner? So I don't know, Karen, do you want to take this one?
Oh, my connection is unstable, so I'm not sure I'm the best for it. No, that name was up there. It was at the top. And again, we got a lot of pushback from some of the pathologists in the community. It was just a lot of pushback that we had. They were worried about the medical legal implications and the billing. If we moved on to practitioner level, there were other implications there. Anybody else on the committee who are involved in those discussions, feel free to chime in. That did not get dropped early in the discussion phase. That one held its own for quite a while. But we got a lot of pushback.
So ultimately, we came up with a short list of names to give to all of our sponsors, and we had to have some agreement. And this was what we have decided on thus far. You wouldn't believe the amount of discussion that the name has had, probably more than the entry-level competencies itself. There are no other questions.
But let me just, one more thing, Amber. I think the one the majority of people agreed on that the term technologist is probably needed to be replaced with something better, more descriptive of our scope of practice. So that was one outcome I'd say we all could agree on. So yeah, that's it.
So if anybody wants to ask a question instead of type it, we can open it up. We have a few minutes left. If anybody has anything they'd like to ask, comment on, or anything. All right, well, it looks like you guys are not asking any questions, but feel free to contact any of us.
Amber, you know
yeah.
what? I actually do have a question.
Sure.
Your journey to creating satellite sites, it's something that I'm very interested in as, obviously we're having numerous discussions on how to increase enrollment. Obviously we can talk more about it all offline, but for me to just a quick understanding of the logistics of the satellite, when the students are satellite students, they are technically students of your university.
That is correct.
Right. So they pay tuition to your university. They just study it in their, in their respective laboratory.
Correct. Yep.
And
They get their certificate of completion because we offer a post-baccalaureate certificate. So that comes from the University of Nebraska.
Right, right. And then do you, I guess I just want to bring this back to my chair because it's something that I think is really good. You have, of course, you have a clinical coordinator, someone who basically works with the student at the site, right?
Correct.
Is that person employed as an adjunct at your university, or are they like, how does that work?
So they're not employed, but we do have a mechanism where we can have volunteer faculty.
Beautiful.
So we can appoint. It's a lot of paperwork and time and going in front of committees and stuff to get it approved, but they can be approved for just a volunteer. That doesn't mean they have any rights at the university or any voting rights or anything like that, but it's something nice that they can put on their resume.
This sounds very good. And many cytotechs in these laboratories really, really do appreciate these opportunities. So it actually helps in their career building as well. Okay.
Yeah. So for the approval of the sites, each site has to have a site coordinator and a medical director at this point.
Okay.
Those have been points of discussion. And they have to meet the guidelines that are put forth and be approved by the CPRC.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much, Amber.
All right, so we do have a couple of other questions here. One from Barb Frayne again is, how could one be included in the conversation about best practice guidelines? I think Karen has been sort of the sole person working on the best practice guidelines, but I'm not sure where that is in the process. Perhaps, or I'm not sure. Deb, do you remember who's been working on that one?
Michelle Smith.
Okay, Michelle Smith. So we could definitely have her reach out to you. Anybody, I think they would welcome feedback on that. So we can let her know you're interested in working on that. Another question is, how does our advancement in professional competence and responsibilities affect PA programs and professionals in practice? Well, so I'll take a stab at it, and then anybody else who wants to address it is welcome to. But I think that we've been trying not to step on other people's toes too much and take over things that other people are doing. However, with that being said, there is overlap among many different professions in the medical field. And so I think that this is just one where, depending on the institution and the skills that they need to fill a position, they might want somebody trained in those areas that can do both, some grossing. But again, we're only doing small biopsy grossing, so it doesn't replace a PA that can do all those other things. But it just kind of depends on the skills that they need. And I know our cytotechs at UNMC do some of that currently, and they aren't replacing PAs. We still have a number of PAs there. So I don't know, Karen, anybody? Caliani, I know you guys are all here. Does anybody want to mention anything about that? All right, I guess you guys are all happy with what I said. There are no other questions coming in. I'll just say that feel free to contact any of us. You can also contact Debbie Sheldon, and she can reach out to any of us with your questions or comments. Wait, I have another one. Another one from Barb Frayne saying, the pushback at our institution is with histology program, PA program, and residents. Nobody wants to teach cytopathologists on the panel. Oh, sorry, I'm reading here. And nobody wants to teach cytotech small biopsy grossing, a work in progress. So yeah, I think we'll have to deal with things from institution to institution and figure out how we can get these things accomplished. We have similar issues at our program where it's going to be hard to get our students into our big grossing area. And so we have an alternative solution with a separate lab that's smaller, that's less crowded and less busy. And we're going to have students do some rotations there and create some e-modules and things for them as well. So some of it it'll probably be minimal hands-on and more online learning. And so that's how we're going to address that. Anybody else have thoughts about that?
Amber, I would actually say for programs which are obviously university based, reach out to your clinical affiliates. There isn't the turf war when you actually reach the hospital level. It's really not there. I think when I walk into the gross lab and I talk to our PAs, they're actually just honored that someone's actually asking them to teach something. You know what I mean? I think we just have to leverage that in a different way. And I think, that's just the way to focus on it. Obviously in the university, everyone's worried about recruiting students. That will remain for probably until the end of time. But I think in the institutional level, I think, people like to enrich their jobs with teaching people, and we need to leverage that.
All right, great comment, Sean. There's a question for any cytopathologists who are on the call. I don't know if there are still any here or not, but I'm concerned about competing with residents for the time and attention of pathologists when it comes to training the new ELCs. How do cytopathologists on the panel envision this training? So is there anybody still here who can kind of make a comment about that?
I'll make a quick comment. I may be there may be one or two of us on the call. You know, time is tough for everybody, but it's an investment in your future. And I think most people will see getting an allied healthcare professional who can help you down the road is always well worth the time and energy you put in initially. So although it might hurt a little bit and some later nights, etc., during the training period, having someone who can handle complex issues and work relatively independently pays you back so well down the road. And we've been struggling with that with trainees for 100 years, and I'm sure we'll do just fine with this.
Thanks, Bob. Anybody else there that wants to make a comment? I'm not seeing names I recognize that are pathologists. So let's see, Barb made a comment saying that they have a grad doing Mohs procedures at local derm office, hoping to have rotations. So Barb will keep you in mind. Maybe we can send our students there too. Any other questions or comments? All right, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope that we can provide maybe a better recording with some better audio. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, everybody stay safe and happy holidays.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks.